wage. Minimum wage, has been an issue for a while now. The question is, can you really live on minimum wage? And
Well, again, when it was created originally, it was called the living wage. That's what it was. It was created so that like no one can pay you a penny a week and go like, well, that's that I don't have to actually pay you more. I could pay you whatever I want, and it was created as a positive thing. Unfortunately, now it just seems like big corporations, and I think this is where we're going to disagree, but big corporations have done all they can in basically trying to prevent the minimum wage from going up, and they made people convince people that if minimum wage goes up, then we're going to have to actually fire people. Small businesses are going to close and all that and all this kind of stuff. And the truth of the matter is, that's a lie. That's a lie, because they don't want to pay more. They can. And if you take a look at what minimum wage covered before, let's say in the 60s and the 70s, minimum wage, you can actually support your family with it. Yeah, you're not going to have a great house. You're not going to be like, all rich or anything like that, but you would be able to support your family. Minimum wage now, in the minimum wage places like in McDonald's, they have signs for you to get welfare because you qualify for welfare working a minimum wage job nowadays. So that's basically where I stand with.
All right. Well, either way you look at it, minimum wage right now, maybe back then, it was more suitable. But, looking at it right now in California, $9 an hour. I mean, what are you going to really, make per month? You know what I mean? It comes out to be maybe like $1,200 a month. Yet again, it depends on how many hours you work. But for $1,200 a month in California, you can barely even afford rent. But the issue here, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's actually minimum wage. I think the issue here is fair pay, because these corporations are making huge profits. They're not paying taxes. And they're paying their employees a wage that they can barely survive on. Yes, I mean, if you increase the minimum wage to $15, for example, in California, which is going to be the law in 2021, that's going to get people to afford more things. But you have to look at it from a different perspective.
Why?
Well, for example, if the minimum wage goes up to $15 an hour, that means now, for example, McDonald's is going to increase their burger price, right? I mean, they're not just going to sit there.
They didn't say that. Minimum.
Yeah, but they probably will increase their prices.
No, they're competing versus others, and McDonald's actually, since you pointed out, McDonald's they themselves said that they are going to be increasing for their employees no matter what. Meaning before the 2021 thing that's going to pass in California, they're going to increase it to $15 an hour. So the idea that they can't afford it or they're going to raise prices is really what corporations have been selling for the longest time, and people have now, are convinced now, yeah, if we get paid more, then this is what's going to happen. But the truth of the matter is, you're actually going to be spending more. You know who doesn't spend more? Rich people. When rich people get more, they don't spend more. When people who don't have money get, like, for example, they're going to go from $9 to $15. Guess what? They're going to be buying more food. They're going to be shopping way more. That happens across the board all the time. So I don't see that the whole price hike is going to happen because minimum wage is going to go up.
It's simple mathematics, okay? Whenever a company has to pay out more, they're going to increase it towards the customer. It doesn't matter what it is. More taxes, we're going to increase the burger price. More minimum wage, we're going to increase the burger price. Whatever it is, the corporation or the company is going to have to pay for it somehow. And yes, of course, McDonald's can afford $15 an hour. They can afford $20 an hour. They could probably afford $30 an hour. But the problem here is this: they have shareholders, okay, and they can't justify a hike of minimum wage or wage in general without showing their corporate buddies that, listen, this is how we're going to pay for it, and this is how we're going to maintain or increase our stock price. Of course they can afford it. That's not even a question. But there's always somebody that's sitting behind them and telling them, well, wait a second, we need to make sure that we're making X amount of money.
That's always been something that has been passed around, and it was always the reason as to why not to raise the minimum wage. And that was basically, if you do it, then you're gonna have to pay more for things. But the lie is that they have been constantly raising prices on everything. If you look back at minimum wage has been pretty stagnant. I mean, you could look at it from like the 90s to now. It's what increased of like $3 or something like that. And we're talking about what, 15 years?
No, we'll probably increase $4.
Because
I think it was like $5. So
$4, right? Okay, so fine. Let's go $4 from, and we're talking about 20 years. That's look at everything else. Look at the bread in the supermarket. Look at everything you buy. Did that really increase by only a little bit, or that increased by a lot? Meaning the $4 that you're getting paid more, is that equivalent to all the price hikes? No. And there's always this thing, well, we're going to have to start charging more. The price hikes are going to happen no matter what. The thing is, if they could convince people, which they have, that if we don't do it, it's better. No. Why they're doing that? And this is the reason, like, if you're somebody who's on the fence about should there be a minimum wage hike, because you're going like, well, I don't know, I don't really get minimum wage, so how does that affect me? If you're somebody who's getting paid, I want to say under $100,000 or $150,000, minimum wage hike affects you. Because, for example, in California, it's going to go to $15, right? Well, think about it like this. Think of it as a stepping stone. So at $15, you get the guy at the lowest position getting $15. So that means the supervisor that was before getting paid maybe $10, $11 is now has to get paid over $15, right? So he or she's going to be at $17, $18. So the person above him is going to have to be getting paid that much more. So all of a sudden, every position above that, the supervisor, the executive, everyone above that is going to eventually, not right away, but eventually is going to get a raise. And that's the thing. If you take a look at how much teachers have been getting paid from in the 90s to now, it hasn't really changed that much. I remember what the starting salary for teachers back in the 90s was around like around 31,000, 32,000. Now the starting salary is around 38, 39,000. We're talking about so much time has passed, 20 years have passed, and somehow teachers are still, still getting paid so little. And that is directly because of minimum wage.
I disagree. So you're saying if minimum wage goes up, then teachers are going to start making more money?
Yes.
Okay, well, okay.
Because of what I just said. I don't know if you heard what I said, but I specifically gave an example of how one reflects the other. And if your lowest employee is getting paid $30,000, you're saying that the teacher would still get paid $39,000, $38,000? No, they have to raise it. They have to raise everyone's salary. If the minimum wage raises, everyone else's salary goes up as well. And that means if more people are getting more money, then they're going to spend more money. So the idea that somehow they're going to have to raise it because people are just, just too expensive to hire, no.
There's one factor that you're forgetting. You're talking about corporations that can afford it. And I agree with you. They can afford it and they should do it regardless of what the minimum wage is. But there's one factor that you're forgetting.
Not at all.
And that, absolutely you are. You're forgetting the small business. And the small business are not going to be able to afford $15 an hour. And you know what what that's going to come out to be? They're
What-
going
what
to
would
go out of
happen-
business. How
right,
about that?
Right. You're absolutely right. And what would happen is the same thing what happened back in the day when they first said, hey, we need a living wage. Like people were, oh my God, small businesses are going to go out of business and all that kind of stuff. And that's true. Some of them did go out of business because they were paying their employees practically nothing. Yes, you're absolutely right. If you can't afford to pay your employees a living wage, you should not have a business. The idea that somehow you should be able to hire anyone and pay them very little and go like, well, that's an okay thing to do is wrong. Yes, if you're a business that can't pay a living wage, that means you're not doing well. So that means yes, you shouldn't be around. Yes, some businesses will not last, and some small businesses will, and they'll thrive. Because again,
I don't know.
more people getting more money in society, first of all, you're creating a much stronger middle class that's going to start spending more. Spending more means that helps businesses way more than lowering the minimum wage. Well, technically, I mean, if you remove the minimum wage and you let small businesses charge whatever they want, that will actually help small businesses. But I don't see too many people going like, hey, this is what we should do, except maybe small businesses.
Right. No, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you're making it seem like if, we move the minimum wage up to $15 an hour, that's going to change the economy. That's going to make people living standards, higher.
Hold on.
You know what I mean? It changes
overall,
everything.
By the way,
It changes nothing.
Right. Well, you just.
And I'll explain the reason why it changes
No.
nothing.
First of all, I never said it's going to change everything. That's a easy argument to make. Like, it changes everything. No, it doesn't change everything, but it changes a whole lot. If you put more money into the middle class and the low class, or the poor class, I should say, if you give them more money, they spend more. That goes back into the economy. That goes back into small businesses. It goes back into corporations, and they pay more. So you have the circular thing going. If people don't have the money, they don't spend. So yes, will it help the economy? Will it help people? Absolutely. The idea of it is ridiculous. Yes. Will it hurt some businesses? Without a doubt. Some businesses that are on the verge, yes, that will hurt them. They'll go, hey, I had to close because minimum wage went up. But that means your business wasn't doing well.
Well, not only that, but when you want to start a business and you have to start out paying your employees, $15 an hour that you don't have, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to start a business. So that's one. And then two,
that's true. You're absolutely right. But then
right.
you should not start a business if you don't have the money to pay. We're talking about. By the way, we're not talking about paying somebody a ridiculous amount. We're talking about a living wage where you could get an apartment, where you could get food, and not be going like, I have no way of next month paying if I'm even off by a little bit.
Listen, I don't disagree with what you're saying. All I'm trying to get at is this whole agenda of raising the minimum wage to $15 is not the answer. And I'll give you the reason as to why it's not the answer. Because corporations can easily afford this. And you already agreed to that. They can afford it. Small businesses cannot afford it. So what this does, it drives away the small businesses. It puts them out of business. And
You're honestly saying that all small businesses
I'm
can't
not
afford
saying
it?
all, I'm saying most. And then what it does is when you do want to start a business, you now looking to hire people here in the United States, and it goes back to the same old thing. Why are we losing jobs to China, to India, to other countries?
So
because we cannot afford to pay people in the United States.
So your argument is for people not getting a living wage, for not helping the economy, for not helping people in general, is that it's going to hurt the economy to do that. So somehow, like if a small business closes down, like that argument has been so overused and so proven so wrong so often. It's crazy. The idea like, oh, well, we can't raise taxes ever because small businesses won't be able to handle it. The reason why we can't raise minimum wage is because small business can't handle it. And the truth of the matter is they can, and they will, and they have already. That's a bullshit thing. Small businesses will constantly be around. Should we do something about corporations becoming bigger in general? That's a completely separate that's a completely separate conversation, which I would agree with you on that. But to talk about it like corporations can handle it, but small businesses can't, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Yes, small businesses that are on the cusp, yes, they can handle it. But at the same time, if you lower the minimum wage and make it even easier for them, you could open up dude, everyone should open up a business then at that point and then pay their employees, let's say $1, a week. Hey, anyone could have a business that's going to do well. But the thing is, you have to pay people enough in the United States so that you have the economy moving. You have people who are going to be able to pay for rent, people to buy food, people to go shopping. So it stems the whole economy. So your job is paying you because you're paying into it, and it becomes a circular thing. And if you don't do that, if you just go one way on this and go, let minimum wage stay where it is and let like the increases in salary stay exactly the same while everything else around you increases, it screws you over. It screws the economy over. And that, I don't know. I personally think that minimum wage needs to be raised, and I'm happy that at least in California it is, and I think other states are going to follow.
It's not going to do anything in California. You think because they're going to raise it to $15, people are going to have more money, they're going to spend it. And
That's
you're
a
right.
fact.
That's a fact. They will have it for a little while.
Hold on a second. Even the Republicans, even that they disagree with this. I remember when George Bush was in office, they gave a $400 thing for doing your basically to all
Tax
of the to all taxpayers, $400 basically across the board, so that the idea was we give them more money and that will stimulate the economy. That's the same idea, except in the broader term where people get an increase in pay. If they do that, they'll put more money back into the economy. They'll put more money into businesses, small businesses and large businesses. That's
yet again, that's all temporary. That all sounds good, and yes, that's going to happen. But eventually, the minimum wage is going to catch up to pretty much the pricing that corporations are going to start increasing and charging.
And that's when you raise it. That's why the minimum wage has constantly been raised. That's the reason.
But anyway, the way that I look at it is this way. The minimum wage should, in my opinion, stay at, maybe let's increase it to $10 and keep it there for small businesses. Only for small businesses, because yet again, they're small. Once they reach to a point where they're mid-tier or they're a large corporation, then I think that the minimum wage for that type of tier of corporation should increase to maybe $15.
That's laughable, even if you think that would be even possible. Like, you think in some ways that corporations are going to adhere to the idea that only they're going to be somehow affected by this raise, but no one else is?
Okay, if well, that's fine. I see what you're saying. But yet again, when big corporations don't pay any taxes into the economy, and everyone is complaining, we can't afford roads, we can't afford this, we can't afford that, so choose. Either you pay your fair share of taxes, or you pay a fair wage, to your employees. You know what I mean? Because they're not doing either. They're not paying a fair wage to employees, and they're not putting money back into the economy via taxes that everyone else is.
I agree to that, but you're basically making it out to be like these are the only two options that they have or something, and the truth of the matter is they have many options, and the number one option that they have chosen is to advertise the idea that minimum wage is going to hurt you, higher taxes on businesses is going to hurt you. All of these things that have been proven to actually help have now been advertised, and most people at this point think that this is something that's going to hurt them, and that's basically where we're at. And the idea that somehow they're going to choose the two options that you suggested, no, they're going to choose that third, fourth, fifth option that they want. Corporations, I'm with you on the idea that corporations are not paying enough. I'm with you that corporations are not paying taxes, basically, in most cases. I'm with you that needs to change, but like you have, like, you know, it's like they have a lot of things in place so that they won't have to do that. They have a lot of, like, the only thing right now that they don't control is the minimum wage, but they have so much money invested in blocking anything about it that's why it's so hard to pass anything in regards to minimum wage. That's why it took so long to even do this in California.
No, again, I agree with that notion that companies should pay a fair wage. I absolutely agree with that, especially corporations that have obscene amounts of profit, and you know that they can pay, and they don't pay taxes, they don't pay a fair minimum wage, they don't treat their employees right, they take advantage of employees, they ask for them to volunteer, and it's just becoming, and they don't pay overtime. You know, there's so many factors here, but you know, this is attributed to the fact that they are big corporations. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they can't afford it. So punish them. Punish the big corporations, and don't punish the small guys that are starting out, that are trying to build their business. Once they build their business to a point where they are mid-tier, or they're as big as the corporations that, you know, they're competing against, well, then treat them the same way. Make sure that they're paying the right wage to their employees. You know what I mean?
But if you really want to do that, why not then? Like, I mean, basically, you're talking about like an imaginary state where we could choose that option. But I'm saying, if we're really talking about that, why doesn't then the government then cover the difference? So meaning, for example, it does what you're saying. So if you're a small business, let's say you're in the criteria of being a small business, you have, let's say, 3 employees or something like that. Okay, so if you have those 3 employees, you can pay the $10 of what you're talking about, but the government covers the rest of it and says, okay, so until you grow or until you close down, we're going to cover that extra $5 for your business for maybe the next 6 months or something like that. If you can't show any growth, then we'll basically, you know, like, we're not going to cover you anymore, and you have to pay the employees the fair wage of the $15 an hour. I'm just saying that the idea, because we're sort of hurting everyone. And the thing is, most people are going to want to work for the Walmarts and the McDonald's and stuff like that. Why would you want to consider yourself, like, why would anybody want to work for a small business if they're paying $10 an hour? Like, those small businesses would close down because they would have a hard time finding anyone of any kind of decent caliber to work for $10, where they could get, where like Walmart and all of these other places are booming because they're, you know, they get to choose of the best employees, and, you know, it's like, pay them the $15 an hour.
Not necessarily true, and I'll give you the reason as to why the small businesses could compete against the larger businesses. One, college students, you know, would probably want to work for a small business more than they would want to work for a big.
Get paid $5 less.
It's
50%
not about
less.
Okay, one, it's not about the amount of money you make. Small businesses work in a variety of different industries, right? And so do these corporations as well. But what I'm trying to get at is, you will attain more experience working for a smaller business. That's one.
I think you're confusing interns and jobs.
No.
Yes, you're absolutely right. They could get interns, you know, if you're a small business doing something interesting, yeah. But most places aren't that. Like, what if you're a small business who's selling shoes? What if you're a small business that, you know, like, that's been around, like a mom and pop's pizza place, where the 2 employees right now are, you know, the husband and wife, and they have 1 busboy or something. You know, it's like the idea that somehow, you know, it's like you know, these are all interesting jobs that you know, college kids want to work at, that's the small minority of jobs. Most of them are not interesting. Most of them are not something they're eager to do. So if you have an option, if you're especially a college student, and you have an option of working for a place, and this McDonald's pays me 15 and this burger place pays me 10, I'm absolutely going to go for the 15 every single time. So that means there's going to be more McDonald's and less of the small businesses, because they can compete. So somebody has to cut you can't have that big jump in pay between the jobs when they're exactly the same jobs. Well, if anything, McDonald's is probably easier than the small place, because usually when you're basically working for a small mom and pop place, you're usually wearing many hats, in a sense. You're doing many jobs. So yeah.
Well, that depends, because in a sense, you know, the small mom and pop shop they can incentivize their employees and say, if we make X amount of money, we're going to give you X amount of bonus, or give you some incentives. You know what I mean?
That's unrealistic. I don't know what you mean by that.
It can't be realistic.
It can't, but it is
it
unrealistic.
Depends. Yet again, it depends.
Come on, you gave two scenarios. One where it's a really interesting job where they're getting a really great experience, which is a very small minority. Another one where they could incentivize if we get the certain amount of money. But if you're a cashier somewhere, how am I supposed to meet that criteria? Like, okay, we have people buy these many shoes, or we had them buy this much bread, and they didn't buy any more. What am I supposed to do? Go out, like, find more people to buy bread? It's not a realistic way of looking at it, because that's something that's not really going to happen.
Well, yet again, it really depends. It's up to the owner of the mom and pop shop to make the environment more friendly, to make things happier for the employees. Because when you're working for McDonald's, it's nonstop work. You know what I mean? You constantly have to do something, and I don't know. It's more stressful.
I've worked for small businesses, and I could tell you that it's not any different. I've worked for small businesses and I worked for corporations, and I can't really say that small businesses were this mecca of greatness that you're talking about. It really isn't. And the idea is that somehow somebody's going to look at similar jobs and go, I don't mind getting 50% less working at this job. No, most small businesses will close. Like, they'll have to get, I don't even know who would want to work for 50% less money. I mean, you will see
less.
15. Yeah, it would be 50%. It's $15 and $10. That's a 50% less, 50% less money.
That's not 50%. What are you talking about?
I'm sorry. I meant to say 50% more money. That's what I meant to say. The other way around. If you're going from $10 to $15, it's 50% more.
Okay. Well, the whole point here is this. In my opinion, the minimum wage sounds good. But the problem is that small businesses are going to suffer. They're going to close down. They're not going to be able to start up.
You're just literally repeating what I already said is basically bullshit, and then, like, you kind of like just repeating it over and again. Like that's the point. That's
I'm just saying in conclusion that what's going to happen is more and more small businesses are going to close. Not as many businesses are going to start up with employees. They're probably going to start up with family members working there, and if they grow, who knows what's going to happen. And the other thing is, the corporations are not going to have a problem with increasing their minimum wage, but not only will they increase the minimum wage, their prices on food will go up. So in any way that you look at it, there's a lot of positive, there's a lot of negatives. It still does not solve the pay gap, because still you're being paid unfairly. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. In conclusion, that from my point of view is that I think California, especially, unfortunately, we're not going to get there until 2021. It's going to be something that's actually going to be better. It's something that I want to say. I mean, if it's going to be $15 an hour by 2021, maybe by 2023 or something, we're going to see people getting paid more money. I see California being the leader in terms of every other state looking at it going, hey, you know what, this actually worked for them. Whereas salaries are more, people are happier, and I think the state in general is going to be doing much, much better. And I think we're going to have an influx even more than today. We're going to have an influx of people coming to California for the minimum wage. So, guys, thank you for joining us again for our fourth podcast. Again, you were with Alex and Vadim, and this podcast was brought to you by Quickie Print, where you can get all your printing needs done. Thank you. All your printing needs done.